go from there. Who has a question? Judith.
So, Reverend Susan, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And for your talk this morning. I loved what you said about the cultural, the creative things you had created in San Jose. You mentioned 3 that sounded wonderful. And I know there's this idea of the side door, of bringing people into the center through the side door. And we used to have a glorious choir here and have not had one. And the sanctuary was full for 2 services on choir Sundays. And we haven't had a choir for a long time, well, since before Reverend Jeff came. And I'm wondering what your vision would be for music and a choir specifically, but also just for these other kinds of events that you talked about, you know, theater or drama or just events that could engage us and also bring people into the community.
So excuse me, let me address theater first because it's a passion, definitely a passion. I think one of my favorite classes, the first class that I created that wasn't a certificated class was called Beginning Acting for Adults. But I created this class with a spiritual perspective in mind. And I went home every night, literally, I'm not making this up, and I would cry because watching people find their voice. Watching people because I told people when we advertised it, if you would rather eat dirt or stick a fork in your eye than speak in public, this is your class. Because it's going to be safe, it's going to be spiritual, it's going to be built on principle. I loved working with our teens and teaching improv, letting Sanford know that. So, but to do it from a perspective of how spiritual it is. You know, when we talk about our teaching symbol and people use the seed, soil, plant, I don't. I use theater. Because in the 17th century, a man named William Shakespeare wrote some words on a piece of paper, right? Mind of God, and then it went through the soil, right? It went through a director who caught a vision from that and started bringing together random strangers, mostly, to audition, right? And then created something that came out in form. And it's 2022, right? And my son just performed in Measure for Measure this summer in Sanborn Park, because they brought back Shakespeare in the park this summer. And so when you think of the creative process that's involved, but what you can tap into, right? Things that you aren't allowed. When I grew up, if my parents wanted my opinion, they would give it to me. That was my upbringing. You're so lucky. Different time. But also, there were certain emotions that it wasn't okay to express them. It wasn't okay to express anger. Right, so some people still carry that. They carry the tapes that were installed by somebody else. So when you can bring it out in a creative, playful way, I did. I would cry so many nights because I would watch the transformation that would happen. So that's number one. As far as choir, I would have to talk to the community because I don't know what the vision is that already exists for music. But I can tell you that as a minister, what happened here today is phenomenal, right? That the talk and the music, that is a partnership because music is the speech of angels, really. And when you sing, by the way, when you sing, you pray twice. That is a remarkable gift, and music will reach people in a way that no matter what the sermon is, you know, I could spend 2 months creating like this magnificent talk or class, but music will move people. We've had atheists sit in our sanctuary because their wife dragged them there. And I mean, professed atheists, not that there's anything wrong with that. But then all of a sudden, the music starts, or the singer, you know, somebody like Lukman, and you see the tears roll down their face, and before you know it, they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. So I would want to see what the vision is for the music ministry from the community, and maybe we would even start small. Maybe it would be a praise team, because that's what we're doing now in San Jose, because I don't know where people went. People moved to Idaho, people moved to Austin, people moved to Colorado, and we lost a lot of people. So we wanted to bring back the choir. We have an amazing music director, and Reverend Queen Michelle Jordan. I don't know if you know her. Yeah, she's our music director. And it's hard. You know, we're just getting back. We're just getting people back. So what we're doing is a praise team, which is beautiful. You know, it's the people who want to sing and bring their voice. So I'm certainly not opposed to it. Does that help?
Okay, questions? Reverend Catherine?
Thank you, Sanford. Reverend Susan, you may have answered this before. I'm sorry.
No.
Was it a different church? I like to go to lots of churches, you know. So this is a very practical question. I loved your question, by the way. Thank you. And I know your creativity. I'm clear. My question is...
You should have seen some of my projects in ministerial school.
Yeah. This is practical and logistical. How do you see your need to commute from San Jose affecting your ability to be present here and participate and actually be in person for many of the things that we do? Thank you.
I have nowhere else to be. That's the truth. This is my passion. It is my ministry. I have nowhere else to be. I would assume that I would be able to create my office hours, right? Like I wouldn't have to be here at 8 a.m. in the heart of, you know, well, first of all, I don't even do anything that feels good before about 10, so just so you know. My day is very, very heavily stacked at the back end of the day because I'm not a morning person, contrary to what you saw this morning. But I am when I need to be, right? Right? We do what we need to do when we need to do it. But this is my passion. This is my ministry. This will be my home. And the commute is nothing. By the way, I drive a car with 429 horsepower, a 5.0 V8 engine. So,
you'll get here in 10 minutes.
and mostly, I don't get to drive it when we go out. Have you met Max? Can I just introduce my husband, Max? Max is a licensed practitioner. He is a former pastry chef. We come as a team, by the way, if you like food. And he's also the regional prac support for Region 3. He took over the job that Robin left. So it took me 40 minutes. Okay. And it was nothing. It was a beautiful drive, and I love it. So when the community needs me, I will be here, and I want to be present to the city of Oakland.
He'll be next. Back there.
I want.
Yes, I did. Sanford's going to bring in the mic, just so we can all hear you.
Good idea.
And by the way, the gentleman with the project.
One of the things, you know, I'm one of those who've been peripherally and sometimes more directly involved, probably going back 10 years.
Okay.
And one of the things I used to really value was there was more younger people involved. And there was even I forgot what they called it. It was kind of a young people's center in Berkeley. And I don't know if you have any ideas about that part of it.
I'm glad you asked that question. I do. I do have ideas about that because I think that I would want to contact the local universities, number one, and I'd want to see if they have a Newman Center. I would want to offer mindfulness classes, and I would offer it for free to the university to teach young people meditation. Oh, and by the way, I just happen to have a flyer if you want to come and see what we're about, right? Because you've got UC Berkeley, you have St. Mary's. I was going to say St. William. I know that's not right. St. Mary's. I understand there's four universities that are within driving distance, and that would be where I would start, because if we can get the young adults in, right, and then I would love to offer things like, so in the fall of 2020, I watched my son and his wife, the ones that live in San Jose. She was the activities director at Prospect High School. My son is a travel agent. Well, he works for Custom Classic Vacations. They're the luxury arm of Expedia, both working from home. She had her daughter, my grandchild Sydney, she was from her first marriage, going into 8th grade, and they had a 1-year-old baby. So imagine schooling at home, working from home, navigating everything that had to be navigated. They're lucky because they have 2 grandparents that live close by. I should add to Catherine's question, excuse me one moment, my Fridays are pretty sacred because I do keep my granddaughter on Fridays. And I will keep those pretty sacred because I want to be involved in her life. Friday night, sure, I'm here. But during the day, that's her time. I'm her nana. So we offered a positive discipline class, which is amazing because that's a technology and a training that my operations director is a certified positive discipline trainer. But of course, we were drinking from, the fire hydrant. And so she got a colleague of hers to offer positive discipline, but we advertised it throughout Willow Glen, and it was virtual. So all of a sudden, we had young parents that we had never seen before who started to show up. So there are things that you can do. I had a beautiful conversation with Reverend Jackie, because one of the questions that has been very much on my mind, even in the before times, right, before 2020, we often talk about our youth and family ministry program, And I've witnessed in many, many churches a thriving youth program, but not a thriving family program. And I'm very keen on that. What are we doing in our communities that is actually family ministry? I love what we do for our youth, right? And I think that's fantastic, and camp and everything that we can do for them. What are we doing for the families, One of the things we do in San Jose, in December, we have Parents' Night Out, where the parents can actually drop their kids. I love making that announcement, by the way, because I tell the parents, you can bring your kids, you can Christmas shop, you can get the rest of the wrapping done, you can start planning your holiday menu, or you can do whatever you want with those 4 hours. Just don't send us a video, right? But that's family ministry, right? When are we bringing families in, saying, hey, why don't you come and meet other families, parents with toddlers? Let's have a parent with toddler day kind of thing. So it's a lot. I am never short of ideas, but I'm going to tell you one more thing. It can't just be me, and it can't just be your board, and I don't know when Constance sleeps. Yeah. I think she hangs upside down from the rafters like a bat between 3 and 4 a.m. or something. So it's not going to be her, right? So the people who are already here, who are here for Science of Mind and want this community and this teaching to have a future, your practitioners, I hope that you're thriving. I hope that you're here when you're not on duty, right? Because that's who's holding the consciousness, right? And keeping things going. So anybody who wants to partner with me, I can move mountains. And by the way, I can make money. I can make money. I know how to do that.
Carmen?
Yeah, thank you.
Please don't forget that gentleman.
I know, but she was next. She
Okay.
has the mic.
Sorry.
Piggybacking on Reverend Catherine's question, how are you in commuting from San Jose to here? How are you going to put yourself in the community that you serve? How are you going to go to the restaurants, walk the lake? How are you going to go to the hills? How are you going to be involved in the Oakland community in which you serve, commuting from San Jose to here?
So one of the things that you may not know is that my senior minister used to live in Oakland. And I commuted here a lot because he lived in a beautiful building that was on Lake Merritt. So we would have staff meetings here. So I know the area, number one. Number two, we are foodies. And your city is becoming an amazing food center. By the way, you have some amazing Michelin star, Zagat rated restaurants. So yeah, I would hang out here.
Okay, and so
But the other thing, Carmen.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, the other thing is one of the things that we did in San Jose is we started having meetings with our city council member because I wanted our city council people to know we exist and how can we partner with you. And before I knew it, they were holding their city council meetings at our center because I invited them in. And I invited them in from the prospect of how do you see the religious community, the religious leaders in your city, partnering with you on what are the issues, right? What do you want us to be talking about? Not politics, but, you know, the poverty level, the crime rate, and all of that. How can we partner with you? And by the way, do you know we exist? And this is what we teach. This is what we believe. We're kind of, you want to be careful in the beginning when you're getting to know them, to let them know that we're interdenominational. I use that word, as opposed to non-denominational, because we are a denomination. But if they know that we honor all paths and that we're spiritual and not religious, and that we can teach mindfulness, and are you aware of how this can help in your city and in the district that you serve? And because of that, not because of that, the mayor in San Jose at the time would have a faith leaders breakfast, where he would actually invite all the faith leaders. And because I started having meetings with the city council members, we were finally invited to that table. And 2 years ago, no, 2019, they asked if I would do the opening invocation
That's
in
nice.
City Hall. So that's just one pathway.
So again, that's San Jose. This is a very different element up here in Oakland. And so, you know, and it's very important for me as a congregant and a practitioner that you're really very much into the community and all that entails that's going on out here, besides the poverty and the homelessness and the crime, which is all important. But the, I think what I'm trying to say, the atmosphere, the people, the pulse of the city that goes on here, in Berkeley and Albany and Hayward and San Leandro, who all come here. It's really important. And having someone here, because you're in San Jose, you talk about San Jose, but you're quick to get there. You know, you know the people. You know, that's part of your place where you've lived. So
But I didn't until I made the effort to get to know them.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know them. I made the effort
But you
to
were
get to know
there,
them.
my point.
But it doesn't matter. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here probably Sunday through Thursday, I would imagine.
Okay, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
that's my question. How are you going to?
I don't think geography has anything to do with this will be my spiritual home, which makes this my community, which makes Oakland my community. I go home to sleep. This is where I live and work.
Okay.
Does that
But we
make
need to
sense?
know that. I need
Yeah.
to know that.
Yeah,
Um,
you got me.
Yeah, no,
I-
Tom's going next.
We're also worried about Tom. Give Tom a microphone.
Actually, folks, before Tom starts, I just want to remind you all, we don't have a lot of time, so
I'll try to keep it brief.
keep it as short as possible. Thank you.
I'll be quick. I'm Tom Rose, and thank you very much for your talk. I really
Hi, Tom.
appreciated it. How much of your bandwidth do you expect to be devoting to the global CSL community?
That's a really good question, because as the regional support coordinator, I'm pretty well linked in to the home office. I know the staff at the home office. I communicate with them all the time. I attend meetings once a month. I try to attend most of the diversity commission work, and if I don't, I watch the videos, because that was, as you heard in the introduction, I started that team in San Jose. And I would want to be very much involved with that here as well. So, yeah, as much as they want me to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
I've been a delegate. Of course, I vote every year. So I'm part of the special election.
Hi, thanks
Hi.
so much for your talk this morning.
Thank you.
If you are elected as our new senior minister, what would you do during the first 6 months on the job?
I would observe. I would have a lot of meetings. I'd really want to know. I mean, even in the meetings that I had yesterday, because it's one thing to have a vision, right? You already have it. You have your mission statement. You have your vision, mission, and purpose. So no one's going, wouldn't think anybody would come in and impose that, but I would want to keep meeting with people to find out what's working. What do we need to keep doing? That's a really important question. What do you think we should stop doing? And what should we start doing? I'm a huge fan of all hands meetings. Well, some people call them town halls, because I think transparency is important. I think the community knowing what's happening, right? This is the vision, this is how we're working towards it. So I really like to have town hall meetings, even if we did them, because the annual membership meeting is great, but that only works for people who have said, yeah, I've been dating you for a while now, I want to marry you, right? What do we do with the people that are, that are a little bit on the fringe, but we want to bring them, I want to hear from people. What is working well? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of, right? So I don't imagine any minister would come in and make sweeping changes, that would be a huge mistake, quite frankly. I mean, that even in the corporate world, most people come in and they take their time and they start to meet with key stakeholders in the community. Who are the key stakeholders? And I would need to learn all of that, right? Because I don't have the history, maybe that Jerry has. And oh my God, I neglected to mention Francione. I'm going to send her an email tomorrow because I felt horrible about that. That's the one thing, like when you do theater and you get a good review, but the one bad one sticks in your head. I came off the pulpit and I went, oh, I said Jerry and I didn't mention Francione. So you have that beautiful history here. And I would want to, A, honor your history, and then really look at what needs to happen next, right? Right? Triage too. Like, is there any place that we have to do triage? Anything that's burning down right now.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sam? Oh.
I was doing it first.
Oh, Deborah.
There she is.
Thank you. In listening to the room, I am also thinking about what we have and where we want to go. And so, what are your thoughts of Oakland in attracting more ethnicity, including diversity? Thank you.
It's an interesting question. And I mean no disrespect, Deborah, you know that. But a lot of the questions are, what would you do about? And what I would like to do is reframe it and say, what would we do about it? Right? What would we do about it? We just hired our first African-American minister in San Jose. Reverend Rochelle McCreary is the new senior minister in CSL San Jose. And when she was asked that question, she said, I'm going to show up every Sunday and talk about it, or I'm going to move through the community as I am and who I am. But I would also ask the community members, how do you foster diversity in your life, right? When you're having dinner parties or when you're going out to play at the beach or, go to San Francisco or go to a concert, who are you hanging out with? Who are you inviting into your spiritual home? Because I can only talk about it so much, right? And I am passionate. I can assure you more than anything, I am a product of the class of 2011, and anybody who is a Holmes Institute student knows that that was the year where the whole diversity conversation blew up. Our senior retreat was horrible. But what has come of that? We have a diversity commission in the denomination because of my graduating class, because of our year at Holmes Institute. It absolutely blew up because everybody went in, at least 7 graduates. We all went in with the expectation that it was going to be, the last will and testament, and we're going to get to run the retreat and do the Sunday service. And opening night, Friday night, Dr. Kim Kaiser says, we're going to talk about diversity. And we all went, wait, what? And it was hard and painful. But what came out of that is miraculous. and needed and amazing. So it's going to be the same thing at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. Who are you being in your community, in our community? Who are you being that people want to come here? All people. Because diversity, and I shared this with you, with some people briefly yesterday in some of the interviews. I'm also very keen when we talk about diversity that it's true diversity. Yes, it's about people of color, because right now, Black Lives Matter isn't some fancy, cute little slogan that you wear on a t-shirt because you want to show up for a day. It is essential, right? There are people in this world who live with threat all the time. So diversity is not some catchphrase that I put on a shirt. It's something that I need to live and breathe and pray and treat and talk about and keep fostering. But there are also, I have a 5-year-old grandson who lives in a wheelchair, and he is mixed race. And I can't tell you how painful it is to not be able to take him to a beach when they come to visit because of the accessibility. So that's another aspect of diversity that I think we should be having conversations about. How accessible are we making our world, right? I went to babysit them one time so my kids could go on vacation, and I walked out of the fire engine museum with him. And, you know, here is my brown grandchild in a wheelchair, and some white woman looks at me and says, "That's a lot." Every ounce of the minister left my body. And I'm okay with that. Because Brooklyn showed up. And I'm okay with that. What about our, how are we nurturing our people who may be over 55, right? Or over 60? How are we nurturing them? Somebody put a question on Facebook the other day. What do you think our senior citizens want their community to know? And I replied, don't bury us before we're dead, right? So I think ageism is a conversation. I think what's happening in the United States, promise not to get political, but there is a war against women, if you hadn't noticed, by the way. And I think that needs to be talked about. So when we talk about diversity, I want to be sure that we are talking about true diversity. How are we honoring gender differences? How are we honoring our transgender community? Because my vision would be that I'm sharing this pulpit, and that maybe in the beginning once per quarter, but I'm doing a pulpit share, and there's 2 chairs sitting here, and we're having fireside chat, so a transgender person can sit here and talk to you about how it is to be in their shoes, to live in their shoes, and how the science of mind help that. I want to bring in an imam from the local mosque and talk about what is it about the Muslim faith that would be important for us to know, right? So Deborah, it's a huge vision. It really is. And again, who wants to partner with me to make it happen? Or Jerry or Francione or Sunshine Michelle, because now no minister can do it by themselves. Mm-hmm. They can't.
Thank you, Reverend. My name is Sam. I'm usually behind the camera.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm being mindful of time as well. My question is this: what is your personal experience in practicing balance of body, mind, and spirit?
I wish you would have asked me in 2019. So I live a 5-point balanced spiritual practice. I live by it. I've kind of let the physical aspect of myself, I'm carrying some grief bacon from the last 2.5 years, and we're both getting back on track. I think that's, by the way, Reverend Rafe Ellis said it's an amazing fundraiser. It's called Shrink the Minister. And you can make a donation for every pound the minister loses. So anyway, that's another conversation. But seriously, Sam, I do hold certain times sacrosanct. My time with my grandbaby, on Friday is really important to me. I make time for this relationship because this man, why does God always make me cry? I could not be a minister were it not for him. I don't remember the last time I did laundry. No, I'm serious. Prior to my meeting Max, I had been coming out of my divorce, and I'm a smart woman, so I knew enough to, I should seek counseling. And I did probably 6 years of therapy. This was way before Holmes Institute, before I even found the Center for Spiritual Living. And the last thing my therapist said, not the last thing, but we had worked through a lot of stuff. And he said, there's 2 things that we have to tackle. He said, you were a woman of faith your whole life. Because I kind of split up with God. After my divorce, I wasn't talking to God for a while. So silly. God was talking to me, though. I was just ignoring her. And then he said, we need to talk about your relationship with your faith. He said, and you're far too young to think that you're going to live the rest of your life by yourself. And I went, psh. Been there, done that, got the souvenirs, right? Because I had done so much work that honestly, for the first time, being maybe 40-ish for the first time in my life, I liked myself. I liked who I was. And I didn't want to take anything on, but then I was doing a play called Tony and Tina's Wedding. And this man starts flirting with me. He was in the cast as well, because we would go out afterwards. And I ran back to my therapist's office and said, something terrible has happened. I met someone, he wants to go to dinner. But the therapist made me write a list. He said, if you were going to venture out again, he said, I want you to at least write a list. And I said, if I write your damn list, will you leave me alone? And he said, sure. So I wrote the list, and the last thing on the list, and it was ridiculous. It was like I wanted somebody with a sense of humor. I wanted somebody who appreciated art. I wanted somebody who could sing, who loved music, blah, blah. And the last thing I wrote was, I want someone who could make me feel cherished. Because I haven't had that experience in my life. And when we first decided we were going to be partners, I woke up one morning and I walked into the kitchen, and there was a cup of coffee sitting there waiting for me. And then it was, what do you want for dinner? He said, I'd love to cook for you. And I went, what? And then our first holiday dinner, he said, I want to make the cannolis. And I went, no, you're not. I'm Italian, you're not making the cannolis. This blonde man from Connecticut? No. And then it was, I'm a former pastry chef. All right, we'll make 2 batches. You make yours, I'll make mine. And then my kids cheated on me and liked his cannolis better, so that's a long story, but this relationship, it's God, Max, my community. That's okay, my new therapist, by the way, after all of that grief, I got smart enough again, and after what was going on with my son, which I alluded to earlier, I'll go into more depth if you want to know. I got a new therapist because I thought, some things are bigger than prayer. I'm serious, I have a deep relationship with God, and I am never by myself. And the fact that I can stand upright after these past 2.5 years and put one foot in front of the other, that's God's doing. And I'm well aware of that. But I needed to process what was happening, not to mention dealing with the for-profit prison system. Never thought I knew a lot about it, but now I'm experiencing it, and I'm a white person, so I can only imagine what my brothers and sisters of color go through, like what happens to the family that can't afford, to pay every time you want to call your person, Or send an email, by the way. I have to pay to send an email, and I have to pay for him to write back to me. It's a long story. I'm wasting time.
So I just want to say.
Point being, we have to have lunch.
We have one more, it's got to be a short one because people in the kitchen are getting
So I
antsy
hope,
with
Sam, I
us.
answered your question. Definite balance. God, family, community family.
Hi, Reverend Susan. So, as many things you talked about today, OCSL has also taken a hit between the loss of Reverend Jeff and the pandemic in terms of our participation and membership. We're in an interesting situation here in the East Bay because there's half a dozen other New Thought communities that also are offering, so people have a lot of choices. And I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do to grow our community.
Thank you.
But I will ask you what you have learned about growing communities in your time at San Jose.
Keep showing up. Robert, there's no magic formula. The fact that you are here today, in and of itself, after the last 2.5 years, that you still have staff, that you're hiring a minister, that you pay your musicians, is miraculous, because I can tell you as a regional support coordinator, many, many churches gave up their buildings. Gave it up. And they're either 100% virtual or they no longer exist. So if we keep showing up, if we keep finding out from our people, because I think people got comfortable. I've already shared in a lot of my meetings yesterday, and I know that some of you weren't at those meetings, people, we have to adapt to the culture and the society in which we live. And people want their spirituality the way they want their Netflix, on demand. I'm serious, they want it on demand. And I tell our community, Sunday's like the booster shot. It's like the drive-through. You roll down your window, you get your shot, and you leave. The classes have to be exceptional because that's where life changes. Sunday's the brief. It's a 20-minute, come in, sing, pray, and we're out of here. Your life will transform in the classes. So everything we offer has to be at A level. We can't phone it in. I was trying to clean up my language. Pastor with a potty mouth. We can't phone it in, right? That's number one. Number two, people got comfortable, right? So how are we dealing with virtual membership? It needs to be a thing. Virtual membership needs to be a thing. It's okay if you want to stay home, but how are you loyal, active, and supportive from wherever you are? So we have to take a look at how we're doing and redefining membership and virtual membership, right? Because I can find 1,000 things for people who don't want to be in the building to do, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that you can do at home and still be in service to your community. You can still give to your community financially and with your time. So that has to happen. And then what are we doing with the youth? Right? How are we getting our youth back, and how are we helping the parents who have to be at a soccer game on Sunday morning, right? So how do we provide that spirituality in a context that's new and different, right? Because maybe church isn't just going to be on Sunday morning. Maybe we're going to add a Friday night service or something, or maybe we're going to add a Friday night potluck that happens to have a spiritual theme to it, right? And it's going to look different. But as a community, you have to love the C word. You have to get used to change, right? Because if you're going to dig your heels in, and the 7 deadliest words in any community, that's the way it's always been, or that was 6 words, but you know what I mean. Math is hard, right? Are you in? Does this place mean enough to you that you're going to continue to show up and weather the changes? It doesn't matter if it's me, it doesn't matter if it's Jerry and Francione, it doesn't matter if it's Sunshine Michelle, because every minister that's going to come here is going to have a minister's heart. They just want to thrive. Teach and pray, pray and teach. Let's go back to Ernest, right? Maybe we should do a service at sunrise at Lake Merritt and take it out into the community. If there's a vigil because 2 high school students were shot at a party, are the practitioners showing up at that vigil in their stoles? Are they holding the high watch for the people that are in deep grief? Take it to the streets. I mean, it gets really comfortable to sit here. And by the way, it gets really comfortable to stay at home in my nightgown and drink my coffee, right? And do church on demand. But it has to be a ministry of presence. And you have to be present as well. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Reverend Susan. Let's go eat.